experimentation, divergence thinking, reinvention, not procrastination, sometimes deviation. I'm just trying to look at some of the vocabulary that a lot of CEOs actually implement in terms of the daily activities that they actually carry out. And to help me with that thought process, I've come up with a couple of questions that I feel every CEO must actually answer. You must ask yourself those questions as a chief executive before you subject yourself to CEO performance review, either by the chairman or by the board of directors. So it's very key as a chief executive officer of a company, knowing that before you are even recruited in the first place, a lot of things go into consideration. It could be where the company you actually have worked for before, where you're coming from, the results that you have been able to deliver. It could also be your charisma. It could be your public relations, quotient, how you relate with people and all of that. A lot of factors are actually considered. So I feel that before every CEO, because it's important, if for example, you are a CEO and you've never been reviewed by the board, there's something wrong with the internal structure of that particular company. And that's why I'm actually creating this content. So that for those companies who are very high up on standards, on structures, on procedures, if you listen to this video, it would definitely help you to know some of the questions that you can actually ask a chief executive officer of a company, of course. And it's important because a CEO must ask himself that questions. So we could title this session 6 questions every CEO must answer. 6 questions every CEO must answer. Number 1 of that question is, how big is the market that your company is actually playing in? How big is the market that your company is playing in? And how fast is that market growing? It makes no sense, for example, to begin to chase invention without use. It's just like you're thinking of, you're a startup company, for example, and you're a company that has to deliver dividends to your shareholders, and as a Nigerian company, you are thinking of starting a space station. Does that even make any sense in the first place? We have an agency here that, is supposed to liaise or even send rockets and all those things into space, satellites and the rest. How far that has gone is left for research. But basically, I'm just saying that you have to target the market. You have to target the market. You have to look out for, people say, oh, everybody is doing something, that means you shouldn't do it. I don't actually believe in that. The fact that a lot of people are doing something, that means that there's a value in that particular marketplace. There's room for disruption, there's room for innovation, there's room for inventions, there's room for divergence, things like that. But it's very important that you can assess the value of the marketplace that you're actually going into. And you can also find out how fast that market is actually growing. Has the market gotten to a point where it's beginning to plateau, it's beginning to stall, and it's already beginning to calm down? You have to analyze all of these things. One of the greatest challenges basically for a lot of companies is that they don't have any data that backs up the activities that they engage in. From that whim of emotions, they bubble, oh, this is a beautiful idea. Nobody is even asking, has the competitor, who are the competitors in that particular field? Have they got burnt by engaging in a particular strategy that this company wants to engage in? How many annual general reports have you read? Annual general meeting reports have you read of your competitors? For you to be able to see, because there's definitely going to be some release of value in that particular document that will give you the impression as to whether what you intend to start doing now is something that is already failing. And if it's already failing, why is it failing? What can you actually do to prevent that failure from happening so that you can actually move to something higher by disrupting that particular thing that is being done already? So people do not care about data. They also do not care about engaging companies that can actually help you find genuine data. Genuine data is very important. Before you begin to engage in a marketplace, before you begin to say things like, oh, I'm going to play in this particular marketplace, you haven't even asked yourself, is there even a market anymore? What is the state of that market? How fast is that market growing? If you enter now, what product are you going to bring about that would differentiate you from what is already in existence? And how soon can you begin to turn over? Those are important questions. So question number one every CEO must ask is, how big is the market you want to play in? How big is that market, and how fast is the market actually moving at? That information is very key. Do not proceed without data. It's very, this thing is like you keep saying it, but people don't keep doing. People don't do it. People are now. It's almost like we're in a search optimization and optimized a social media optimized environment where people just test data online. They don't test it offline. Even the ones that they test online, are they really testing it? Do you rely on everything that Facebook tells you, or any Instagram tells you, or Twitter tells you? Is that what you base everything, all your business decisions and strategy? Is it surrounding social media? So you need to move ahead of that. You need to get real data, street data, workable data that would inform you and will bring benefit to your shareholders. And of course, all the investors in your company will be happy for it that they actually employed, or better yet, engaged a very intelligent CEO. So that's for question number one. So another question basically is this: what is your market share? If, for example, you've already started that particular business, do you have internal review processes? What is your market share in 2021? And where can you be headed to by 2023? I'm just giving like a 2 years gap, so that I'm not saying in the next 10 years, no, because these days we have found out that the rate of disruptions is already so high. A lot of things are happening, and if you don't keep a monthly track record, or a biannual track record, or a 3-month track record, every 3 months you'll be able to look at your strategy. Is it working? What areas have you failed? What areas is the market responding to? You chase that. What area is the market diverting to? You chase that. So much of these things, like I said in the first point, basically still revolves around data. So it's very key for you to know, what is your market share presently? Do you have like a 1% market share? If you ask Amazon, for example, what is Amazon's market share? Or if you ask Dangote Cement, for example, what is Dangote Cement's market share within the Nigerian market? Definitely they will have the data to tell you, because they're also looking at data of their competitors. And of course, the competitors are not much. Maybe you have like 2 other majors in the industry, and there are like about 3 main companies that produce cement in Nigeria. So that might be easy. But if you're in a business where you have more than 100 competitors, because the market is there, the products are there. You're in the business of asset management, for example. You're in the business of real estate, for example. There are a whole lot of real estate companies. But you can still be able to tell, if you have a team that actually looks out for information of this kind, you can actually still tell what your market share is genuinely. Not that you come and tell your shareholders, we have a market share of 50%, when in actual sense you are doing less than 1%, 2%, or even 0.5%. So that truth factor, that candor, the candor within your organization is very key, that you have that under checks and within wraps, so that you don't have any issues whatsoever that would make a mess of what your entire operations actually represents at the end of the day. So that's very important. That's very key. Disruptions are happening everywhere. Innovations all the time. New entrants are coming into the market space. So much is actually going on. In fact, a lot of CEOs who are also, we did a content on CEOs and CSOs, that's the Chief Strategy Officer and the Chief Executive, to the powers and responsibilities of strategy be domiciled within the office of a CEO. Should he delegate that particular responsibility? This is where that whole video comes in. I hope there will be a timeline for you to watch that particular video. It will definitely help you a great deal. So the point I'm trying to make basically is that you have to keep tabs on strategy. You don't just roll out a strategy that you are not monitoring. Then what's the point? What's the point as a CEO? Strategy all around. In fact, in your organization, there is even a coalition of strategies. strategies are colliding left, right, and center. Things are happening. No one is monitoring. It's almost like the chief executive officer is having a hangover. He's so high on alcohol that he's a bit confused as to what's really going on in the organization. The organization is so intoxicated with a lot of irrelevancies because of the collision of ideas. So it's very important. New entrants are coming into the space. There are disruptions all around, like in the banking sector, innovations coming. In fact, just look at the whole boom in the logistic space, for example. So people are already networking with DHL, with all the major delivery courier companies in the world. They don't need to touch a parcel. I know companies like Sendbox, for example, they don't touch your package. But they make money off your package because they're able to network, they're able to do a lot of technological things with DHL and all of that. You know, DHL is still the backbone of that particular industry because a lot of people still channel their parcels through them. That is an innovative thing to do. So with all of those innovations coming in, and I'm sure in the nearest future we are still going to have so much of this happening, how do you stay relevant within your space? So it's important to know your market share, and it's important to be able to gauge with where we are presently, where can we be in 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 24 months from now. Don't go on that wild goose chase of in the next 5 years because nothing is sure. The world is moving at a very fast pace that people are actually changing strategies by the month. At the end of 1 month, they see that this strategy is already cleared out. How can we move to the next thing? Then the next question you should ask yourself after determining question 1 and question 2 is, what customer groups? Who are your customers? What customer groups is your company creating or is your company targeting? What group of customers is your company targeting? Are you just running a target without any demographics in mind? You know, you're doing business on the whims of your emotions, you know, things like that. Who are you targeting? What is your market? Do you even know who your market is? It's a question, yeah. Do you know who your market is? Do you have an idea who your market is? Do you know where your market is resident? Do you understand that? Do you understand that? I'm repeating this so that it can actually sink in to whoever is listening. Do you know who your market is? Do you have like a dashboard of, you know, who your clientele is? Do you have that in your, have you created a persona of the kind of individual that you're actually looking for to market into, for example? Do you have that in mind? If, for example, somebody says, I operate in the downstream sector, petroleum sector, for example, it's easy to know who your market is. One of the ways you can know, if we actually had a very eccentric or deep-rooted data system that is reliable, your market in that sense could be anybody with a driver's license living in a particular location is a ready market for whoever owns a car and a driver's license. It's a market for a petroleum distributor, for example. You're selling petrol and products and all that. That one is so easy, like it's rocket science. It might not be that simple for some kinds of companies. For an investment company, for example, you know, you take investments, you help people to reinvest their funds and all that. How do you know your market? Your market might not necessarily be a student who is still receiving funds. Your market is an earner, somebody who is earning. Then what category of earners are you actually looking for? That's how to ask those kind of relevant questions from time to time. Then also, how can you reach your market goal? Having identified who your market is, who is your market, then how can you reach that goal? That is where the thinking cap of every CEO has to come in. And of course, it's important also it's not in all cases that the board should influence, you know, certain staff that the CEO works with. Sometimes it's also important because the CEO might have his own team of sharpshooters, people that deliver results at any level. He should also have that freedom to be able to influence the team, some members of the team anyways, that are actually working with him, people that he has tested and trusted over a period of time and all of that. So that's very key for you to be able to meet your goals, to know where your market is and how to get to the market. How do you get to that market? All those are strategic, related questions. In this regard, for example, you might be thinking of high net worth individuals. Right now, a lot of real estate companies are targeting Nigerians in the diaspora whose $1, in fact, they spend like $2,000 within the Nigerian space. That's already $1 million. Before they can, as a Nigerian maybe worker, government worker, is thinking of, okay, how do I raise like 3 million to 6 million? You know, I don't even know if they earn that in an entire 2 to 3 years. I don't know, depending on the organization. Then you find somebody in the United States who is a nurse, for example, but he doesn't necessarily trust anybody to give his funds to Nigeria. Companies who have built trust over time are now looking for those kinds of individuals whose $20,000, when you change that in Nigerian currency, for example, I think $1 is about almost 485. Let's even just put $1 at 500. That means $1,000 would be 500,000, right? $10,000 will be 5 million. Wow. $20,000 will be 10 million. So imagine somebody who has $20,000 as working as a nurse or even working as a security guard, as the case may be. I'm even talking of the low range. I'm not talking of doctors now. I'm talking of the low range guys. They can easily say, and they can easily warehouse that fund to put into a particular company. So every reasonable company that has a portfolio within Nigeria can begin to think of diaspora partners. You can network through NIDCOM, you can network through the embassies, you can network through the Ministry of what's it called now? Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You know, these kind of things. These are things that you can do. You can leverage on already existing, you know, systems and structures to be able to reach out to individuals out of the Nigerian space that have those funds. I'm not talking of the HNIs now. They're also politically, political individuals within the politics and all that. Of course, it's no secret what our politicians actually earn. So they can also be a target of people who are looking for those who have the funds to actually spend and to invest. So these are assignments that a CEO has. You know, it's a tough job. It's a tough job when people begin to think of, okay, I want to be a CEO. They are working towards that. Then you have to be asking yourself a lot of questions. On these first 3 questions I've already mentioned, can you deliver? Can you deliver on these particular questions? Then another thing that would happen is another question could be, what products, after identifying these people, what products should you sell to win those class of individuals? If, for example, your target is the HNIs, what kind of products are you going to be selling? If, for example, like the cowbell strategy of old, you know, all of a sudden Peak Milk was rolling, then cowbell came in with a sachet and began to attend to the needs of, you know, younger financial class individuals in the majority. It was an explosion strategy for cowbell. After that, we now found out that, cowbell came with a sachet. Peak Milk and all the other premium milk brands, they now saw that there's value in this thing that cowbell is doing. People now started following that particular strategy, that kind of thinking of cowbell, to also disrupt that particular market. There was a price war, and of course to the benefit of low-end users of milk products and all that. So that's what I'm trying to say. What kinds of products are you putting out there to be able to reach the market that you are the market that you have identified? That's essentially key. Are you looking at a high-end product? Are you looking at a low-end product? Then, are you gauging and applying digital transformation? Because in any business right now, in fact, most of the businesses that can actually scale, if you are thinking of a scalable business and you haven't thought of digital transformation, that means your entire strategy is already, instead of sitting on 3 legs, it's sitting on 1. Just a little breeze, it's already crashing to the ground. So that's actually very key and very important. You have to think of the product, what products for each segment of individuals. You know, it's a lot of thinking process. It's not something that you just wake up from sleep and it's data driven as well. It's data driven. You know, I'm still coming back to data. That's very key. That's very important. And any CEO that will do well must actually answer question number 4. Oh, strategy, beautiful, awesome. Strategies do not move themselves. You have individuals say, I'm a strategic expert. I'm a guru of strategy formulation. I'm a guru of strategy expression. I'm a strategy lord. I'm a queen of strategy. You know, you find all of these nomenclatures on social media and all that. However best a strategy in this world, this is question number 5. Any strategy that is not backed up by finance, by requisites, funding, support, or maybe change of culture, change of attitude. If you don't want to spend money, you say, okay, instead of us buying bottled water in our organization, we'll start drinking pure water so that we can raise money. But it still ends up, you must still use funds to power your strategy. So the question basically is, how much do you need? Having done all the talk and all that, how much do you need to power your strategy? How much? Do you even know how much you need? Have you thought out that particular process? Have you broken down your strategy into stratas of thought processes? Strata stage 1. Let me not even say strata. Let me just say stage. Stage 1 strategy is going to take us 3 months. Within this 3 months period, we are spending this on this. We are spending this on stakeholders. We are spending this on adverts. We are spending this on improving the intellect, on training of our staff. We are spending all of this, Have you thought that entire process out? Because no strategy will work itself. No strategy can work itself. It's as dead as this paper is. Every strategy that is not implemented is as blank as this paper is. You have everything in your thought mind, in your thought process and all that, but there's nothing on execution. So you have to be big up on execution as a chief executive. That's expected of you. Your communication should not be in excuses, but should be in execution. When you find CEOs making excuses, it tells me that something is fundamentally wrong with that particular organization. And it's also going to be shown in their bottom line. It's going to be shown in the attitude of staff. It's going to be shown in the bottom line. It's going to be shown in the risk quotient of that organization. It's going to be shown in the decision quotient of that particular organization. So a lot of things, I can mention several things that can happen with an excuse-laden CEO, a CEO that is full of excuses. The organization is already going down the drain, and if the board is not actually careful, let's say it's a board that meets 3 times in a year, a CEO has made excuses for 9 months, that tells me that he has taken the company back for at least 3 years. Yes, 3 years at least. The company is almost dying, but nobody is finding out because of an excuse personified CEO. You don't have the luxury of excuses as a CEO. It's your job to get results and to get things done. So that's for question number 5. Then another question I also wanted to ask is, after beautiful strategy, after beautiful execution, your execution should not be limited to, we're in the financial year 2021. What is your revenue goal? What is your revenue target? And like I said before, I don't expect that strategy should be like 5 years. In my opinion, I don't expect to have a 10-year strategy. You can have a long-term run, but strategy has to be implemented in stages so that you can monitor results. Also, in terms of revenue, I don't expect you to have a 10-year revenue plan. That's not my expectation. My expectation is that every 6 to 12 months, we should know what is the company doing in this quarter. What has it done in this quarter? What is it about to do in third quarter? What is it about to deliver in fourth quarter? Those are important questions that a CEO has to be thinking about. I've mentioned just 6 of them, but I tell you, there are so many things that CEOs are thinking about. And also, in determining your revenue goal, people sometimes talk more of revenue and they don't necessarily focus on profits. If it takes you 2 billion naira to make 4 billion, that means maybe after tax you have let's say you have 2 billion after tax, for example. That means you've made a profit of 2 billion, having spent 2 billion. Okay, you spent 2 billion to make 4 billion. That means you have a profit of 2 billion, but you spent 2 billion. So when you're talking of your revenue analysis and all that, you're thinking of, okay, how can we reduce what we are spending so that we can increase profits? That's another strategy on its own. So a wise CEO is thinking of, okay, can we play this game on a lean level? Can we play lean and still maintain quality, still maintain the vibrancy of our brand? It's possible, definitely possible. So you have to be thinking of reducing your cost, increasing your profits, delivering on revenue targets. Not that you spend 5 million to make 6 million. Did that sink in? You can't tell me as a CEO now that you are spending 5 million and you made 6 million, that means you were able to deliver, is it 0.2% or 20%? You know, something like, I don't know the percentage anyways. If the mathematicians out there, you can actually help us out. But I don't think that that's a healthy company. A company that has to spend so much and they get just a little more to get by. It's not acceptable by any standard. And I'm sure a lot of boards will frown at that seriously. And of course, the job of the CEO might even be on the line. So I feel with these 6 questions, you're on the right path to go. Once you constantly ask, in fact, don't even wait to become a CEO before asking yourself these questions. And like I said, not every business owner is a CEO. It's a serious thing to call yourself a chief executive officer. It's a serious thing. It's a serious thing. It's not the nomenclature these days. You get on LinkedIn, everybody's a CEO. On Instagram, you have Instagram CEOs, Facebook CEOs, you know, people who don't necessarily even understand what it takes, the dynamics of what it takes to become a CEO. So I hope that this has been a wonderful session for you, and I would like to get your feedback, your questions. If there are any other areas you feel I should address through these videos, please hit me on the comment section. I would love to answer your questions. Do have a very blessed day, and see you on the next video.